I am Cami from the blog and YouTube channel Tidbits. I definitely caught the spring fever early this year and I could not resist picking up some books all about flower gardening and growing cut flower gardens. I've been soaking up these 7 incredible books on flowers and I thought it would be fun to open each of them up with you and briefly show you what's inside. Now my hope is that it will help you determine if any of these books would help you and which ones might be more tailored to your flower gardening needs and interests. Truth be told, I don't intend on growing a flower garden this year. We have just built a pole barn home and moved in while it is still very unfinished. We have to use all of our time and resources to finish the inside of our house, but we have been blessed with 25 acres and my husband and I just can't help but dream and want to learn everything we can about what we can do with all this beautiful soil. So whether you are ready to dig into flower gardening right now or not, I just encourage you to pick up a book or two and learn all you can, which is really the fun part anyway. Okay, let's work through this stack of wonderful books. I'll briefly go inside and share what topics are included in each of them. I'm going to share which 2 are my absolute favorites and which ones might actually be a bit too much information for me at the moment. They are all great, but some will work better for you at the moment than others. I'll be sure to share the links to each of these books in the description below. Okay, the first book I want to talk with you about is the Well-Tended Perennial Garden. Now, like the title suggests, it's specifically for perennials, if that's your favorite kind of flower. It says it's the essential guide to planting and pruning techniques. So when we look inside the table of contents, there are 3 main sections. So the first part in this book is all about basically getting your garden prepped and ready for planting, as well as dealing with pets and diseases, and they go through how to prep your beds for certain types of flowers, testing the soil, and all that good stuff. It's really the things you need to think about before you even start planting. The second part of the book is all about pruning and cutting back or deadheading and all that kind of stuff. Now this was the one book that I found that did the best job at explaining how to care for your plants after they've grown. It definitely goes into more detail than any of the books that I picked up about how to do this. So that was a really, really good section if that is something you feel you need more information on. There's things such as pinching and thinning and dead leafing. Basically just once your plants have grown, what to do with them after that. There's even pruning to prepare for winter and for spring. And the third section of this book is what a lot of these books actually have, and that's an encyclopedia or a really good reference for all the different kind of perennials. So it just goes through many different types and varieties and gives you information such as what zones it grows in and what time of year it blooms, whether it needs full sun, all that kind of stuff. But it is a big part of this book, just going through an encyclopedia of different perennials. So that is really the meat of this book and what that one is about. Again, very thick, very informative, and I think its best or most unique information is that of caring for your plants after they've grown. So that is that one. So this next one, the Flower Gardener's Bible, this was recommended to me by a local friend, and she is very versed in gardening, and she recommended this book because of how much information it really has. It is by Lewis and Nancy Hill, some lifetime gardeners. Let's take a look at the contents. Again, there's 3 sections in this book. The first part is really all about the joy of flower gardening, and I think it's mostly meant to get you excited about the possibilities. There are topics on powerful partners, like which flowers go well together. I'm seeing a variety of different vines and grasses for your landscaping. It briefly talks about gardening in the north and in the south and adapting your garden to different climates. Again, these are very, very brief sections on these topics, but they are in here. There's this nice section on planting a succession of blooming bulbs and perennials so that you get different blooms and color throughout the year. There's also this chapter on nurturing your garden soil. It talks about looking for soil fertility, the organic approach to flower gardening, how to get your soil tested. I'm seeing this map where it goes through different parts of the world and shows what zone you're in. That is very helpful. Like I said, this book is really cram-packed with lots of information. And then there's chapter 4, which is briefly on planting your flower garden. There's some really good step-by-steps on how to prepare your beds and plant bare root plants, bulbs, and all sorts of good step-by-step instructions. This first part also covers different kind of pests and things that can ruin your plants, and it goes into a great deal of information on that. Okay, the second part of this book, they call it the Gallery of Gardens. It's probably my favorite part of this book and what makes it more unique than any of the others that I picked up. It goes through different types of gardens that you could design and plant. This is a garden where the focus is on the path. So here it shows a garden plan if you want more of a wildflower or meadow look. There is information for if you have a hillside. And it's just really fun because they show different pictures and how you can plan out these certain areas that you might have around your home, like this shady little nook. Seashore plantings if you happen to be by water. The charm of a cottage garden. I just think this book did a really good job to kind of get your mind going and your creativity, exploring what kind of different gardens that you could plant and have themes around them. Here's a fun one, a bed for butterflies. So if you want to attract butterflies into your garden, there's a good one. So anyway, that is my absolute favorite part of this book. Okay, then part 3 of the Flower Gardener's Bible is all about a feast of flowers. Basically, it's an encyclopedia or reference for all the different kinds of flowers that they talk about. And it's a big chunk of this book, so there is plenty to refer you to. I like how this one is organized a bit better than the other one. It covers the same things like bloom time, best location where to plant it, then your zones that will be more successful for this type of plant. So it's a really organized index or encyclopedia of different flowers. There's pictures for each one. So that is a really helpful part. All right, so that is, again, a really, really informative book. Now I do feel like it's a bit much more than I can chew right now, but I think this will be an excellent book to keep in our library just for reference. All right, let's get into this next book. It is called Annuals, Perennials, and Bulbs. So this one I feel like is not so intimidating as far as a lot of information, but it really has a lot to get you excited and started. So I like how each section is kind of color blocked on the side, so you can easily flip between perennials, bulbs, and annuals. And then the whole book is sort of like an index of flowers, I guess you could say, but they tie in different like how-tos throughout the book according to each flower variety, which I think is really helpful. So this one's how to collect seeds in the annual section. And then you've got pictures and all the information that you need, like I suggested in the other books, such as blooming time, light, space, soil, what zones, and all of that. So I feel like this one is a really good quick reference if you needed one of those on hand. Again, here it steps through the perennials. There are some sections where it's sketched and then others where there's photography, but it's all really beautiful. In the back is an appendix, and I feel like this is just where they're kind of briefly going over a more general idea of how to garden. You got designing your garden, testing your soil, And then there are just a few ideas for different kinds of garden styles that you can plant. So it quickly goes through a lot of how-to information, but isn't very overwhelming at the same time. So that is a really good book as well. All right, so this next one is this cute book called The Flower Garden: How to Grow Flowers from Seed. And I feel like that's where it's most unique. It's solely talking about growing flowers from seed. So it has some incredible photography. I feel like it's really quite a delight to look through. So this is part 1, and it's all about choosing your flowers. And this is the main section of the book. Again, it feels a lot like a flower index or encyclopedia. So it just goes through each flower that it's featuring, talks about what it is, what it likes, and how to grow it successfully. But it is very brief. But if you're just trying to pinpoint which flowers you really like and what you want to plant, this is a really good one to go. I like that there's this whole section on exotic beauties. So they highlight a few really rare flowers that you might not be able to see just anywhere and teach you about them and how to grow them. Okay, so like I said, part 1, kind of the index of flowers, is the bulk of this book as well. Part 2 is a short section, but it is all about sowing and growing. It covers pests and diseases like a lot of the other books, but really briefly, here's a page teaching you about how to grow them from seed in containers, and then also some text about sowing them directly into your garden beds. Then we get to part 3 on how to use your flowers. And again, it's just a really short section, but it talks about this fun idea of how to make a sweet pea arch, and a few things on making a cutting garden, and then planting flowers in containers, and then just a couple pages on arranging your flowers and some really pretty pictures. So that one is, I think, really just a feast for the eyes and could kind of get you started to try to discover what kind of flowers you like and you want to plant in your garden. All right, let's go through this book called Mastering the Art of Flower Gardening. Now, this is written by Matt Mattis, and basically the title Mastering the Art explains a lot about his approach. He's trying to encourage you to be more artistic in your garden. Look for those rare kind of plants, and then he tells you where you can find seeds to do this, and really gives you a lot of information about how to make your garden very unique. I like how he has divided his book. It's really clean and simple. You have a section on getting your garden started, but the majority of the book is covered in your spring blooms, your summer blooms, your autumn blooms, and your winter blooms. So it's really gardening throughout the entire year and what you do during each season. So here's a really quick section on how to start them. He explains he's a bit of a rule breaker. A lot of times they say to not plant it directly in your flower beds, or if you need to start the seeds inside. He explains how you can kind of break those rules if you understand why there are those rules, and can kind of replicate the environment so you get success either way. All right, so there's this section on spring blooms, and he has beautiful photography in here. It's just stunning. In each season, he has the blooms that are common and also the exotic ones, but he gives mostly just a really brief explanation about how to grow these and what they are. There's vernaculars, and you can see it's just a few paragraphs, but then throughout the book, he highlights different kinds of flowers, much more detailed. So here's primrose, and you can see there are several pages discussing how to be successful with primroses. And here's again irises, which is a few pages. But then you get into the ones where he just covers briefly, like lavender's only got a couple of paragraphs. So you can tell which flowers he's very passionate about, and gives you a lot of information on, maybe the more complex ones that he is trying to help you understand a little bit better. So those are the spring blooms. Then he dives into summer blooms, and it's laid out the same, just really brief on some of them and very detailed on others. I really found his autumn and winter bloom sections fascinating. You might think of autumn just more of the warm tones, but he shows how autumn blooms can be very, very colorful and how this season provides quite an array of color and variety if you want it to. All right, then his last section on winter blooms was really inspiring to me. He plants a lot of things in his windowsill or in his greenhouse, but he basically gardens all year long. Here's a section on paper whites and how to start those bulbs in your home. I love this page where he shows his windowsill in February, and it is colorful and bright and full of flowers, something I just never even thought was possible inside in the winter, but I can imagine how therapeutic and rewarding that would be to have those fragrant flowers right inside your home during the dead of winter. So I was really, really inspired by his approach to gardening all year long and all the possibilities. So this one is a very, very beautiful book. I do love it, but these last two are my absolute favorites. I'm sure you've actually heard of them, especially if you've been looking up flower gardening books yourself. There are two books written by Florette Farms. Erin Benzakein, hope I said that right. But she created this one a while back, and it is all about growing a cut flower garden. But she does it commercially, but it's also a way for you to just grow flowers if you want to cut them for your home or for gifting. It doesn't have to be on a business or commercial scale. And this one just came out, I think in March, just barely, and I scooped it up right away. It's A Year in Flowers, and the focus of this book is all about how to use your flowers after you've grown them, how to design gorgeous bouquets for every season, and basically using flowers fresh all year long. So they are incredible. You can tell that Erin is a blogger. She steps you through the whole process, very, very detailed, and they are incredible. They will inspire you so much. Let's go through this one really quickly, The Cut Flower Garden. She also divides it into sections for spring, summer, autumn, and winter. But before all that, she has a really good section on the basics, getting started, how to map out your garden for the entire year, how to perform a soil test, and then how to water and manage weeds and all that good stuff. As you can see, here's kind of what I was talking about. She gives you like step-by-step pictures and details. It just makes you feel like you could be successful at this even though you've never done it. There's a little bit on how to care for cut flowers, the tools that she likes to use. There's a section on all the possibilities, and it just does a really good job at getting you very excited. Okay, here is the spring section, and she goes through many different varieties and talks about how to grow them for success. Basically like an index, but it doesn't quite read like one. The photography is just stunning and will inspire you so much. So there's spring, summer blooms. She also talks about the kind of tasks that you need to be aware of during each season. There's the autumn, and again, her autumn looks a lot more colorful than I imagined autumn would be. Okay, then here's the winter section. She talks about how to protect and enjoy the winter stillness, but also using that time to prepare for spring and what you can do just to gear up for the next blooming season. So this book is just a treasure, absolutely wonderful, and I know you will love it. The same goes for This Year in Flowers. Let's take a look at the table of contents. She goes through getting started for flower arranging, and then some simple techniques, and then again it's like spring, summer, autumn, winter. Her approach is a lot like, say, the fresh food industry, that we eat foods when they're fresh, and hers is that we grow and pick flowers when they're fresh and in season. And so she talked a lot about how, you know, brides and certain event, people will not quite understand this, but this is something she wants to help people understand, that each season has its own beauty and that you can grow and sell for those purposes. So I love these pages where she's talked about structural foliage and kind of the plants that you throw into a bouquet for support. There are several of those pages, and I just think they're really inspiring to get an overview look of what is possible. Techniques for arranging, you can see her arrangements have more of that wild, natural floral arranging skill that is so popular these days, and she teaches you all about how to get that same look. So again, she just goes through all the different seasons and the kind of blooms that you can have available and different things that you can make, flower crowns, bouquets, all sorts of good stuff. Then here's the autumn section. Again, her autumn is full of color and beauty, and then things get a little more muted and quiet in the winter section, but still absolutely beautiful and inspiring for what you can do with flowers all year long. So incredible book. If you were only to get 2, these are definitely the ones I recommend. And then if you are ready to dive into a lot of information on specifics, I would probably recommend the Flower Gardener's Bible. I hope you've enjoyed this review on these books on growing flower gardens. Now, I recently shared another video on my favorite books for raising chickens, which was another impulsive result of our longing for spring. But I have a few more book review topics that I want to do with you yet. I would love to hear if you have any favorite books in your home library. I'm not really one to pick up a lengthy novel, but I'm a sucker for beautiful books that help me learn and grow in many skills. I hope you'll stick around Tidbits and see what other projects I have for you. I'll be sharing all the relevant tutorials and updates we do in our home, and sprinkling any other fun tidbits that I'm excited to share with you. You can sign up for my email updates below, and be sure to subscribe and come back for more inspiration for do-it-yourself living.